What happens when two giants of the gospel world finally come face to face? You won't believe what unfolded when Bishop Gino Jennings confronted Pastor Kim Burrell in a moment that shocked their entire community. Let me tell you, this is how years of hidden tension and unspoken conflicts exploded into a conversation so intense it shook the very foundation of gospel music and ministry. But here is the shocking part. What was said during this rare meeting was far from what anyone expected. This is where it gets interesting, so stay with me as we dive deep into this story that has everyone talking. For years, rumors and subtle hints of disagreement between these two powerful figures had spread quietly. Bishop Gino Jennings, known for his strict and unapologetic approach to scripture and holiness, often clashed in beliefs with Pastor Kim Burrell, who took a more modern and inclusive view of worship and ministry. What makes this story different? It wasn't just a difference in opinion, it was a deep-rooted conflict about how the gospel should be preached and lived. Followers watched as their public comments and sermons occasionally threw shade at each other, fueling speculation of rivalry and jealousy. But behind the scenes, sources close to both leaders revealed the tension was much more about theological beliefs than personal grudges. The turning point came when Kim Burrell openly criticized legalistic attitudes in some gospel circles, a comment many believed was aimed at Jennings and his followers. This sparked a wave of defensive responses from Jennings' camp, each side holding firm to their beliefs and refusing to back down. But what happened next was unexpected. Despite all the public back and forth, neither leader was willing to face the conflict head-on until now. Destiny took an unexpected turn when they finally agreed to meet privately, away from cameras and public pressure to clear the air. The setting was tense from the start. Jennings wasted no time and spoke with his usual boldness, calling out what he saw as misunderstandings and misrepresentations of his ministry. He said his only goal was to uphold the true biblical message of holiness, which he believed was unfairly attacked. Kim Burrell responded calmly but firmly, defending her approach that focused on grace, inclusion, and the power of love. She challenged what she called the rigid legalism in gospel leadership, clearly directing some of her words toward Jennings. The conversation quickly became more than a simple discussion. It turned into a passionate debate, with both leaders using scripture, personal stories, and years of experience to defend their views. The clash wasn't just about ideas. It was a battle between two very different visions for the future of gospel ministry. But here is the craziest part. Beneath all the strong words, there was a deep emotional layer. Both leaders showed a real desire for respect and understanding, mixed with years of hurt from feeling misunderstood or unfairly judged. Midway through the conversation, Kim Burrell shared a personal story about the struggles she faced in ministry. Moments of isolation and judgment that many never knew about. This vulnerable moment softened the tone and caught Jennings by surprise, creating a brief space for empathy. However, the calm didn't last long because what happened next turned the entire meeting upside down. Jennings revealed private messages exchanged over the past year that neither side had made public until now. These messages told a very different story from the public fight, showing moments of frustration, attempts at peace, and underlying tensions that the outside world never saw. What makes this story even more shocking is how these messages exposed a hidden layer of distrust and betrayal, accusations that went beyond simple disagreements and hinted at a power struggle within the gospel world itself. The tension rose as both sides faced the reality that their conflict was bigger than just theology. It was about influence, legacy, and control. As the conversation moved forward, both Bishop Gino Jennings and Pastor Kim Burrell realized that their conflict wasn't just about words spoken in sermons or disagreements on theology. It was deeply tied to the influence they each held over their followers. The private messages Jennings had shared exposed moments where trust had been broken, not by lies or falsehoods, but by actions that felt like betrayals. Silent refusals to support each other, missed chances to build bridges, and the weight of pride standing in the way of reconciliation. The room felt heavy as these truths hung between them, revealing how much pain had been hidden beneath the public appearances of strength and confidence. Jennings, usually so firm and unshakable in his beliefs, admitted that the isolation he sometimes felt in his strict approach to ministry had led him to expect the worst from others, including Kim Burrell. He confessed that his defensive stance was partly because of fear that the purity of the gospel message was slipping away, and with it, the souls of those he was called to shepherd. This was a side of Jennings few had seen, and it surprised Burrell. She, in turn, shared how she had often felt pressured to soften her message to keep the peace or avoid conflict, but that doing so made her feel like she was betraying the very gospel she preached. The moment was raw and real, a glimpse into the struggles behind the pulpit. Yet, despite this shared vulnerability, the tension didn't vanish. Instead, it shifted. The conversation turned to the question of leadership and responsibility. Both leaders knew that their words and actions affected thousands, if not millions, and the stakes were higher than just their personal feelings. Burrell challenged Jennings on what she saw as an outdated, rigid way of leading that pushed people away instead of drawing them closer. She believed gospel ministry had to evolve to meet the needs of a changing world. More compassion, more understanding, and less judgment. Jennings fired back that without discipline and clear boundaries, the church risked losing its foundation and becoming just another social club. Then came the twist no one expected. Burrell revealed a secret she had kept for years, an incident early in her ministry when she had reached out to Jennings for guidance and support, but was met with silence. That moment, she said, changed everything for her. It was the first time she truly felt rejected by someone she respected, and it planted a seed of doubt that grew into the distance between them. Jennings listened quietly, the weight of regret visible on his face. He admitted that he had been dealing with his own battles at that time and hadn't realized how much his silence had hurt. This confession cracked the armor around their disagreement and opened a door that neither thought would open so easily. But before peace could start to settle, the conversation took a surprising turn. Jennings suddenly questioned Burrell about some recent statements she had made in interviews, statements that some in their community saw as dismissive of his ministry. Burrell explained the context behind those words, but the damage was done. The air thickened with unspoken accusations and defensive pauses. Each felt misunderstood again, as if history was repeating itself. The struggle to fully bridge their gap seemed more difficult than ever, showing just how complicated pride, pain, and passion can be when mixed with faith and leadership. Just when it seemed the conversation might reach a breaking point, something unexpected happened. Both leaders, exhausted by the emotional roller coaster, paused to reflect on what had brought them here, not just the conflict, but their shared love for the gospel and desire to serve God faithfully. That moment of silence was powerful, filled with the possibility of something new, something neither had expected when they first sat down. It was clear that this meeting was just the beginning of a longer journey, one that might change everything for them and the communities they led. The pause stretched longer than either expected, and in that quiet space, both Bishop Gino Jennings and Pastor Kim Burrell found themselves reconsidering the walls they had built around their hearts. Burrell spoke softly about the pain of carrying burdens alone, the loneliness that often comes with being a leader who must always seem strong. She described how, despite her public image of confidence and grace, there were nights filled with doubt and fear, moments when she wished someone, especially Jennings, had reached out instead of turning away. Jennings nodded slowly, admitting that he too felt the weight of expectations crushing him from every side. The pressure to be perfect, to never falter in faith or judgment, had hardened him more than he wanted to admit. Their conversation grew more honest, and with that honesty came the recognition that their conflict was not just a clash of opinions, but a reflection of deeper wounds, wounds caused by unmet expectations, misunderstandings, and the harsh realities of spiritual leadership. Burrell shared a story about a time when she nearly gave up her ministry after feeling completely isolated, questioning whether the path she had chosen was worth the pain. Jennings revealed his own struggle with balancing the demands of his congregation and his personal faith, how the fear of losing his community made him harsh and unyielding. It was a moment of mutual empathy, where the barriers between them began to crumble. Yet, just as they seemed to be moving toward reconciliation, the conversation took a sharp turn. Jennings brought up the impact of social media, how quick judgments and public criticism often twisted their words and fueled misunderstandings among their followers. He expressed frustration at how easily their disagreements were turned into public battles, distracting from the true message of faith they both wanted to share. Burrell agreed, explaining how she had also been hurt by online attacks and false rumors, and how this digital world sometimes made it impossible to hear each other's true intentions. The realization hit them hard. Their real enemy was not each other, but the culture of division that thrived on conflict and misunderstanding. In that moment, they made a tentative decision to find a way forward, not by erasing their differences, but by respecting them and focusing on what united them. They talked about creating spaces where leaders like themselves could share honestly without fear of judgment, places where dialogue could replace debate and healing could begin. Both acknowledged that the journey ahead would be difficult, filled with setbacks and challenges, but for the first time, they felt hope. Hope that through vulnerability and openness, their ministries and their communities could grow stronger. However, just as the meeting was about to close, an unexpected message arrived on Bishop Jennings's phone. It was from a trusted member of his congregation, warning that rumors of this private meeting were already spreading, and not everyone was pleased. Some saw this conversation as a betrayal or weakness, a sign that Jennings was compromising his principles. The news cast a shadow over the fragile peace they had built, reminding them that their reconciliation would not be easy or accepted by all. The stakes were higher than personal pride. Their reputations and the faith of their followers hung in the balance. Still, neither Bishop Jennings nor Pastor Burrell was ready to turn back. They agreed to meet again, to continue the dialogue despite the challenges. As they parted ways, there was a shared understanding that this was not just about fixing a broken relationship. It was about changing the way faith leaders connected with one another and with the people they served. It was a beginning, uncertain and fragile, but powerful enough to hold promise. After that tense warning, Bishop Jennings and Pastor Burrell each went back to their daily lives, but the echo of their meeting stayed with them. For Jennings, the message about spreading rumors weighed heavily on his mind. He noticed how quickly news traveled in their community, how friends and even some close followers questioned his decision to meet Burrell. Some called it a betrayal of his beliefs, while others saw it as a sign of weakness. It was painful, but Jennings knew he had to stand firm. He began to share more openly with his congregation, speaking not just about faith, but about the power of forgiveness and understanding. His words stirred mixed reactions. Some embraced the change, while others grew more distant. Still, he held on to the hope that this honesty would eventually heal old wounds. Pastor Burrell faced similar storms. Her own community was divided. Some accused her of giving in or being too soft, while others admired her courage to bridge gaps. She found herself answering tough questions and dealing with criticism that sometimes felt harsher than anything from her past. Yet, amidst the struggle, she discovered unexpected allies, other leaders and members who were tired of division and longed for unity. This gave her strength to keep going, to push for more honest conversations not only with Jennings but across the wider church community. Together, they began to quietly build something new. They organized small private gatherings where leaders could share their struggles and doubts without fear. These meetings weren't about agreeing on everything, but about listening and learning from one another's journeys. Word started to spread about this fresh approach, and slowly, more people joined, drawn by the hope of healing old conflicts and finding common ground. The path was not smooth. There were setbacks and moments of doubt, but the effort itself became a powerful witness to the possibility of change. One day, during one of these gatherings, Jennings and Burrell realized how far they had come. Their relationship, once marked by tension and mistrust, had transformed into one of respect and genuine friendship. They laughed together about past misunderstandings and shared stories of the challenges they still faced. More importantly, they saw how their example was inspiring others to look beyond differences and focus on shared faith and love. The tension that once threatened to divide them had become the very thing that united a wider community. But just as they began to believe in a new future, a final twist emerged. A high-profile leader, known for strong opinions and unwillingness to forgive, publicly criticized their efforts. He warned that this new path was dangerous and would lead people astray. His words spread quickly, stirring up old fears and doubts. For a moment, it seemed like the fragile peace might collapse. Yet Jennings and Burrell, strengthened by their journey and the support of their growing community, stood firm. They responded not with anger, but with humility and determination, reminding everyone that true faith was about grace, understanding, and the courage to change. In the end, their story was not just about two leaders, but about the power of dialogue to transform conflict into connection. It showed how even deep divisions could be healed when people chose to listen and walk together despite the challenges. Their journey became a beacon of hope, proving that faith was stronger when it was shared with openness and love rather than fear and judgment.